Hey, this is Stacy, just popping in here. Going to give you some quick tips on managed care negotiations. Just a few tips here, but I wanted to make sure that you were aware RCM Academy is going to be opening soon for new class members that are going to be taking the boot camp. We are so excited about that launch on this new class that we have. We have 18 modules that are built out related to revenue cycle management, and managed care is one of them. So module 5 covers the credentialing, the enrollment, and the contracting. So we go through extensively how those things work, how they affect the revenue cycle itself. And we have a lot of tips and some worksheets that are associated with that we're going to be providing to you so you can help maintain that. But going back to RCM Academy, if you want some more information, we have a link below for you. So just press that link down there and you can get the information. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. One of the biggest things that I can tell you is you really need to know your numbers. If you are not prepared with your numbers, then you've already missed out. So determine a couple of things. First is your revenue per visit to negotiate your fee schedules. You need to know the reimbursement baseline, what rates to request, what are your bottom line rates, and make sure that you're considering your profits, your actual costs. What's it going to take for you to achieve a profit margin? And then analyze what you're currently receiving per patient per visit. So you want to look at your service lines, your top 50 items. What is your revenue driver? Is it 4 codes that are producing all of your revenue, or is it 15 codes that equate to 80% of your revenue? If it's the 15 codes and 80% of your revenue, protect it like gold. Make sure that when you're analyzing this data, you're not only analyzing these numbers on the payer that you're negotiating with, but you're analyzing these numbers based off of what the other payers are paying. How fair is it? How disparate is it? What does it look like? And what is it costing you to provide this service? So again, what's your profit margin? And then what do you want to ask for? Understand what your market is. Do you know all the employers in your market area? Is your market area flat? What's your general economic outlook that you're currently serving? Are you expanding? Is your general economic area, is the area expanding? Has it grown? Has it not grown? Is it flat? What does it look like? What does it look like in the next 2 to 3 years, the next 3 to 5 years? Is your practice in a financially depressed area, or is it in a growing area? A couple of things to also think about is, on this particular payer, what percentage of patients are actually in your market area? Ask them for that information. Ask them ahead of time if they can provide you the number of patients in your zip code market area. Now, you will need to run a zip code analysis by payer to see how many patients you're actually treating from this payer, because that gives you a good perspective. Well, if you're only seeing 5% of patients in this market area, that's interesting. Now you know the value of what they're bringing to the table for your organization, but you also don't want to dispute that. Not necessarily dispute it, but you also don't want to not think through that process, because, we recently had a client that had a large organization that decided they were going to build a distribution center in their region. And this was an Amazon distribution center. So there's several of them that are going up in the United States. So when we heard about that, we immediately found out who the payer was that Amazon is contracted with nationally, because there were a large amount of jobs that were going to be coming to that region. We wanted to make sure that we had a good, solid contract for this particular client. And based on the contract, what was the increase in the number of patients that were going to be seen at this particular facility? And how could we get ahead of this? How could we start potentially ensuring that all the costs were being covered, etc.? So by doing that, we were not only able to have a warm welcome for the new organization, but we also went back to the payer and had some discussions with the payer outside of the normal contract review process. We went back to the payer with the employer with us, and we got a more favorable contract, all because we did our homework. So just because they may not be one of your top payers at the time, it doesn't mean they won't be in the future. So think through that process and use the strategy I just told you about, knowing what your economical area looks like, and be very aware of what's moving into your market, what's leaving your market, etc. And do your homework. That will definitely help you. Another thing to look at that we think is important is making sure, again, those top 50 services. What are your impacts on your bottom line? What's your driver? And then how will any negative rate changes affect you? So if they decide that they're going to make rate changes, how is that going to affect you? Don't be caught surprised by that. And then compare those rate changes year over year, especially if you're tied to RBRVS. Make sure that you're comparing that year over year. I would go back and look at the last 3 years, if possible, and review it year over year. And I personally would look at your top 15 payers. Some only do your top 10 payers, and that may be appropriate for your organization. But I mean, why not? If you can look at top 15, you have a good analytics tool that can give you the top 15, do that. It doesn't hurt anything. It's good data. And that data gives you more knowledge. And that's the whole point of being prepared for these types of contracts, is to make sure you know your numbers and know what you're looking at. The other thing is be persistent. When you are working with payers and you're trying to renegotiate contracts, even if they are not responding to your requests and they're saying that they don't have any rate reviews or not open to rate reviews at this point, be consistent. Continuously ask. Continuously push for it. Make sure that you're saying, I'm sorry, but we need to have a rate review discussion. Sometimes payers have used the excuse that they are short-staffed and that they're backlogged 4 to 6 months for rate reviews at this time. Well, that only benefits them. That is not benefiting your organization. You know, we've gone through this with some payers at this point, and, you know, we've reached out to physician advocates and some payer contracting groups that had a little bit more clout with some of these larger organizations than some of our provider groups. I've referred them to some of the payer contracting groups to actually get them ahead of the game and push these payers to do some renegotiations. Did it cost them a little money to get a payer contracting group to help them? Yes, it actually did. But in the long run, they actually got higher reimbursement contracts, and they're paying a percentage of whatever that additional reimbursement is to the payer contracting group. So it is still a win-win situation, and they got further down the road than they would have gotten if they would have just allowed the provider, the payer group, to say, sorry, we don't have any way to go ahead and renegotiate. We're not renegotiating at this time. So that just gives you information and some leverage to be able to push a little harder in a different manner. Other times, we've actually gotten some luck by involving the insurance commissioner. So when we've had situations where the payer is just not responding to our request in a timely manner, and when I say timely manner, I mean, come on, guys, you've got to give them some time. I mean, they're short-staffed just like we are short-staffed, just like everybody is short-staffed. So, you know, if they don't respond in, 30 to 45 days, then that's a problem. But if they don't respond in 5 to 7 days, it's not ideal, but it's not unusual for a payer. You know, a lot of the payers now have automatic emails that just say, we've received your request. We will respond within 30 days, not business days. They say 30 days. Literally, that is the response. That is the email response. So you have to be careful with when you involve your insurance commissioner, because this is not their responsibility. It is not their responsibility to help you with payer negotiations. But what we've done is we've been persistent with the insurance commissioner's office and just said, I understand you're not responsible for payer negotiations, but if you can just get me in contact with someone there, all I need is to be able to get in touch with someone. I mean, wouldn't you agree that 6 to 7 months of us trying to communicate with someone and getting no response is a little outside of acceptable? And then finally, we end up getting that information. Another thing that we do, we really use LinkedIn, and we just scour LinkedIn to find out who's in the managed care department, who's over managed care negotiation contracting. And we will send messages through LinkedIn trying to get them to help us get to the right person that can have discussions. So be persistent. Don't give up. One of the things that you would want to definitely keep in mind is that payers use an algorithm pricing tool. And unfortunately, many of them have been found to be set up incorrectly. So if you're not monitoring your payments and your allowables and confirming that your allowables are matching your contract rates, then you're probably leaving money on the table. So as of July 2024, there are different states that are actually introducing language to regulate the process because of all of these algorithm pricing tools that have errors and that are shorting payments to providers. So make sure that you're actually looking at this and that you're monitoring, are your allowables matching what your reimbursement and your negotiated rates are in your contracts? And if they're not, then you need to report that and you need to push for it. You also need to keep in mind that you only have a certain time that you can report this to get this corrected. Because if you don't report that in enough times, just like a timely filing deadline, you have a payment dispute deadline. Often it's 45 days to 60 days. If you don't dispute it in that time period, then you accepted the payment. You can't do anything about it in most instances. So that's another thing for you to look at. And again, use LinkedIn, use all the resources and tools that you have. We're more than happy to answer any questions. Don't forget, we have our managed care module. So we go through our module that talks about credentialing, enrollment, contracting. We go into detail about those processes and how to help you with those processes. It includes worksheets, helpful tools and tips on how to keep you on track, what to look for, how to manage those processes. And that's inside our RCM Academy. The big information is contained in our bootcamp, which is our 18-course module that goes through everything associated with revenue cycle in any organization, whether it's a hospital or healthcare system, physician practice, urgent care, multi-site specialty. The revenue cycle is the revenue cycle. And that's what we're focused on, is helping you with revenue cycle management. So again, I'm Stacy. Hope you have a great day and great week, and we will see you soon. Thank you.